Everyone, welcome to Ansarkari. So today we'll be taking up the newspaper for 5th April. So over here we have the first article, How Bad Loans Ruined India's Banking System. So this article basically examines the root of India's NPA crisis, which was followed by the 2008 financial crisis. So the government stimulus, which was aimed at boosting demand, clashed with supply side constraints such as weak infrastructure and industrial capacity, which triggered inflation. So, to address this, um, infrastructure investment was prioritized and the PPP model was promoted. So, however, in this, the poorly structured PPP model, which is public-private partnership, it allowed inexperienced players to take on large projects through SPVs, which were special purpose vehicles, which shielded them from losses while letting them profit, leading to reckless borrowing and fund diversion. So banks they shifted from project finance to universal banking, lacked with the expertise to assess the long-time loans. So these structural flaws, which combined with the close business political nexus, it also enabled defaulters to escape accountability. So, regulatory efforts by the RBI were often undermined, which revealed a weak institutional enforcement. So, this offers basically a case study of major defaulters and it misses historical context and lists of systemic reforms. Now, talking about this article, it underscores the need for a stronger regulatory framework with better designed PPPs and institutional accountability, which is important for economic governance as well as ethics. Then we have the next article, Can senior citizens evict family from property? So this basically explains a recent Supreme Court judgment which upheld the right of senior citizens to evict family members, including children, from their self-acquired property under the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007. So this ruling basically clarified that parents are not obligated to prove ill treatment to seek eviction, mere refusal to maintain them or creating mental physical distress is sufficient on this ground. So this verdict basically strengthens the legal safeguards for elderly citizens, which is a growing demographic in India right now. And it also emphasizes the state's role in ensuring social justice and dignity for vulnerable population. And this issue basically ties into debates on aging population, intergenerational ethics, and the effectiveness of social welfare legislation. Then we have the next article, which countries are quitting key landmine treaty and why. So this article basically discusses how countries like Finland, Poland, South Korea, they are reconsidering or exiting the 1997 Ottawa Treaty, which banned anti-personnel landmines, citing heightened security threats, especially due to the Ukraine war and tensions with North Korea. So this move, it basically marks a significant shift in the international security norms, and it also reflects how national interest and real politics often override humanitarian principles. Also, it reveals tensions between disarmament goals and rising geopolitical threat. And it presents an opportunity to discuss the efficacy and limitations of international conventions during periods of global instability. Then we have the next article, a new pattern of remittances. So In this article, we basically analyze the recent RBI data, which shows a shift in India's remittance inflows from the Gulf to advanced economies like US, UK, Canada, and Singapore. So, Gulf countries, they are contributing a declining share due to local hiring policies and falling oil prices. So, while developed countries, they offer better wages and long-term opportunities. So, now this trend, it has multiple implications. Firstly, it basically highlights the need for India's migration policy to adapt. So, this comes in terms of skill development, bilateral mobility agreements, and social security coverage abroad. Apart from this, it also reflects a shift in the nature of India's diaspora. So, going from the blue collar workers to skilled professionals, and it also links external sector demographics and employment trends. Thicker in the middle, torpedo bats that have taken baseball by storm. So, this article basically explains the rise of torpedo bats in baseball, which was engineered to provide more power with a thicker barrel. So, this design is controversial, with purists arguing that it gives batters an unfair edge in the game. So, mostly now this is a sports story, and it talks about how technology challenges fairness and the spirit of competition, whether it is when we talk in context of sports, exams, or even governance. And also it talks mirrors similar debates in crickets, highlighting the role of regulation in the evolving field. And such themes, they are useful when we talk of the essay papers mostly. Bridge to the future. Now, this article basically highlights the transition from the 110-year-old Pamban Railway Bridge to a newly constructed vertical lift railway bridge which connects Rameswaram Island to mainland Tamil Nadu. Now, this development holds multidimensional relevance when we talk about history, governance, infrastructure, disaster management, and strategic affairs. So the original Pamban Bridge, it was inaugurated in 1914, and it was a very important piece of colonial infrastructure, which not only represented early Indian engineering marvels, but it also reflected the religious and cultural importance of Rameswaram, which was a prominent is a prominent Hindu pilgrimage site. Now, with the town being one of the Char Dhams, so the bridge historically enabled lakhs of devotees to access the sacred island, which shaping the regional socio-cultural mobility. So the construction of the new bridge, incorporating modern technologies like a vertical lift mechanism, showcases how India is advancing in infrastructure, engineering, and transport design. So the vertical lifespan of first in Indian railways, it will improve efficiency, reduce delays, and ensure safe and swift movement of trains. Apart from that, this project it also aligns with national initiatives, so such as PM Gati Shakti and the National Infrastructure Pipeline, which underline the government's push for seamless multimodal connectivity. Now, looking at this from the disaster management point of view, this basically recounts how the original bridge was vulnerable to extreme weather events like the 1964 cyclone, which destroyed Dhanushkodi. The newer bridge has been built with resilience in mind, and it is basically relevant when we talk about climate resilience and mitigation strategies. So, this apart from that, the improved bridge, it will also boost tourism, it would increase trade potential and offer better employment prospects for the local population, including fishermen and transport workers. Apart from that, the Rameswaram region, it lies closer to Sri Lanka, making this connectivity vital from a national security perspective. And the improved infrastructure strengthens logistical support and can serve as a critical asset in times of emergency or defense mobilization. So, this is mostly what the article was highlighting. Tariff war cannot last, says experts. So, this article is highlighting how the trade war, which was started by US, particularly by the imposition of higher tariffs on Chinese goods, reaching up to 76% in some categories. So, in retaliation to which China imposed similar tariffs on US goods, the European Union, which is another major US trading partner, is also considering reciprocal tariffs in response to US imposed duties on steel and aluminum. Now, if major economies like China, European Union, Canada, and Mexico together, which account for 55% of US imports, unite in a counter-offensive, it could force a policy reversal in the US. So this scenario, it basically showcases the risk of unilateral trade protectionism and the potential for tit for tat tariff wars, which could cripple global trade and economic growth. Now, when we talk about this in India's perspective, so India has taken a more diplomatic route this time, choosing to resolve disputes via bilateral trade agreement, which basically marks a shift in India's trade policy, emphasizing dialogue over confrontation, which basically aligns with India's broader foreign policy of strategic autonomy and constructive engagement. Basically, this article highlights how India needs to diversify market and fast-track free trade agreements with the European Union, United Kingdom, South America, and the Middle East. So this basically reflects India's evolving economic strategy to insulate itself from the global shocks and deepen ties with emerging economies. And it is also a call for enhancing supply chain integration and technical collaboration, especially with advanced economies like the US, to create long-time, resilient, and trade partnerships. Larger than expected tariff means higher inflation, slower growth. So the Federal Reserve Chairman, he has acknowledged Trump's newly announced tariff, which are significantly larger than expected, leading to concerns about higher inflation and slower economic growth. So this development presents a monetary policy dilemma for the Fed, which is mandated to maintain price stability and full employment. So now when we look at this from a global economic governance perspective, key multilateral institutions like WTO and IMF, they've also raised red flags, and the WTO estimates, which is the World Trade Organization, estimates a 1% contraction in global merchandise trade volumes due to the tariff hikes and possible retaliatory actions. So the International Monetary Fund cautions that these measures they risk dragging an already sluggish global economy into further downturns. So basically appealing for constructive engagement between US and its trading partners. Also, how this scenario is a classic manifestation of the protectionism versus multilateralism, which is a key theme when it comes to global trade policies. And the rise in tariffs, both actual and threatened, it creates uncertainty for businesses, which affects investment and supply chain. Also, for India, this adds to the challenges of managing external sector vulnerabilities, giving the dependence on global trades for sectors like textile, pharma, electronics, and automotive components. Apart from that, we can also talk about how India should adopt a calibrated trade strategy, which would help balance diplomacy with economic pragmatism, and how we could speed up negotiations for FTAs, which is free trade agreements, with European Union, UK, Latin America, which would help diversify export markets. And the situation, it also underlines the need for domestic supply chain resilience and import substitution, which would reduce vulnerability to external shocks. Then we have the next article. Cabinet approves four railway projects worth 18,658 crore. So also the second phase of the Vibrant Villages program. So this railway project across three states aims to add about 1,200 kilometers of multi-tracking lines, which would enhance connectivity in the economically backward and aspirational districts like Gadchiroli and Rajnandgaon. So now this move is in alignment with the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, which aims to boost multimodal connectivity, improve logistics efficiency, and reduce the transport cost. Also, this is to support the movement of key goods such as coal, steel, agricultural produce, and cement. And this project also highlights efforts to make India's logistics sector more efficient and green. Then we also talk about the second phase of the Vibrant Village program, which has an allocation of rupees 6,000 crores for financial year 25 to financial year 29. And this aims at the holistic development of villages located along India's international borders in 16 states and the Union territories. So this includes strategically sensitive areas like Arunachal Pradesh, Ladakh, and Uttarakhand. So this reinforces the government's vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. How? By basically ensuring area, border regions such as secure, economically vibrant, and self-reliant. Apart from that, it also plays a critical role in countering border migration, boosting rural development, and integrating remote communities with the national mainstream. So this basically reflects India's approach to border management through development as a strategic tool. And these initiatives collectively demonstrate how infrastructure and regional developments are being leveraged for economic growth, national security, and inclusive development. Prime Minister pushes UPI trade at BIMSTEC meet. So, at the sixth BIMSTEC summit, which took place in Bangkok, the Prime Minister emphasized BIMSTEC as a platform for inclusive development and regional cooperation, not just a regional bloc. Apart from that, he announced over 20 initiatives, includes linking UPI payment systems and energy security center, security cooperation, and Chamber of Commerce, strengthening India's East policy and digital diplomacy. Also, talks were held with Bangladesh interim leadership, raising concerns over minority safety and urging restraint from divisive rhetoric. So, the Prime Minister's aim to Sri Lanka, it aims to boost ties in energy, trade, and connectivity, and overall reinforce India's neighborhood first policy, strategic outreach in the Bay of Bengal. and basically efforts to position the BIMSTEC as an alternative to SAARC. The era of region. Now, this article basically emphasizes a significant shift in global geopolitics from the idealistic nation of globalism to a more practical and strategic approach rooted in regionalism and minilateralism. So, the decline in the effectiveness of global institutions like the United Nations, it has led countries to focus on smaller interest-based groupings that can respond more quickly and effectively to regional challenges. So while globalism it promised collective governance and peace through multilateral institutions, history it has shown that real power dynamics have always operated through regional alliances such as NATO, the Warsaw Pact, or economic groupings like the European Economic Community, which later became the EU or the European Union. So, in the 21st century, countries are increasingly aligning themselves with regional blocs to protect their strategic and economic interests. And for India, this evolution it holds important lessons. Since independence. India has followed an idealistic foreign policy guided by principles of non-alignment and third world solidarity. So these approached initially or that basically lacked pragmatic engagement with regional realities. Now, efforts to integrate South Asia through SAARC have largely failed due to geopolitical tensions, particularly between India and Pakistan. Then we have regional groupings like BIMSTEC, which is the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation, which offer new opportunities for India to lead and shape a stable regional order. And apart from that, this article argues that while grand ideas like the Global South may sound aspirational, India's true strategic advantage lies in focusing on its immediate neighborhood and maritime region. So, BIMSTEC, despite being underutilized for years, it holds the potential to become a crucial platform for cooperation when we talk of trade, energy, connectivity, and security, especially if India takes a proactive leadership. So, this regional integration of the IOR is not only essential for India's economic and strategic interest, but it also aligns with the visions of a multipolar world order. So, how India it must overcome its past hesitations and invest in sustained regional diplomacy, capacity building, and infrastructure development to make these groupings effective and influential. SEBI unveils framework for performance validation body. So, the Securities and Exchange Board of India has unveiled a new regulatory framework for establishing a past risk and return verification agency, which aims to curb misleading advertisement related to the past performance of financial products by research analysts, investment, and stockbrokers. So, any reference to past performance is promotional material. It must be validated using risk return metrics, which was verified by PARVA, which is based on SEBI's prescribed methodology. So, PARVA, a credit rating agency, it must meet strict eligibility criteria, which includes at least 15 years of existence, a net worth of rupees 10,100 crore, and at least 250 issuers with list of proposed to be listed debt securities. So basically, upon approval, the CRA will begin a 2-month pilot based on the pilot's outcome and the oversight committee's assessment. And the PARVA will also will formally launch its services. This move basically enhances transparency and investor protection by ensuring that past performance claims are data backed and they're not misleading in any way. So, apart from that, SEBI also introduced standardized formats for system and network audits of market infrastructure institutions like stock exchange, clearing corporation, and depositories. So this initiative is part of SEBI's broader efforts to improve governance and operational integrity in the financial markets. Expect more monetary easing. So this article discusses the outlook for monetary policy in India ahead of the upcoming Monetary Policy Committee meeting. So markets expected 25 basis points rate cut, bringing the repo rate down to 6%. And the greater interest basically lies in the forward guidance, especially whether the MPC will shift its stance from neutral to accommodative, which is important because an accommodative stance would signal more rate cuts ahead, while a neutral stance would keep all options open. Now, this rate cut expectations are based on slowing inflation, moderate economic recovery, and a relatively stronger rupee, which together provide the MPC same comfort to support domestic growth through easier monetary policy. So, however, the central bank is also cautious considering the global uncertainties, especially due to new US tariffs, which could slow global growth and affect emerging markets like India. So, despite these factors, analysts believe that the MPC might retain its neutral stance while still proceeding with one to two more rate cuts in the coming months, which is because changing the stance now could limit flexibility later if external conditions worsen. Apart from that, another important factor influencing this view was the RBI's aggressive liquidity infusion in 2025, which is over 5 trillion since January through bond purchases and forex operation, which has shifted the banking system from a liquidity deficit to a surplus. Now, according to experts, the RBI's liquidity actions are more about enhancing monetary policy transmission rather than hitting at more easing. So, a rate cut seems likely, but the MPC may not change its policy stance to keep room for future decisions in a volatile global environment. Now, the large liquidity injections are aimed at improving the effectiveness of current monetary policy, not necessarily at signaling more cuts. Israeli strikes kill 17 Gaza as troops entered. Comes Israel has expanded its ground operation in the region, particularly around Deir al-Balah and northern Gaza, following renewed efforts to pressure Hamas into releasing hostage. And over the past several years, more than 100 Palestinians have been killed in intensified Israeli attacks. And about 280,000 Palestinians, they have been displaced since Israel ended its ceasefire with Hamas, according to the UN. So this conflict has triggered widespread humanitarian concerns. Answered, Supreme Court nudge Rohingya kids go to school in capital. The Supreme Court recent directive has paved the way for Rohingya refugee children in Delhi to access in formal education, reinforcing their constitutional and statutory rights under the Right to Education Act. So previously, they faced repeated denials of school admission due to the refugee status, and a circular by Delhi government has that discouraged enrollment of children suspected to be illegal migrants. So, however, the apex court's intervention instructed schools to consider their applications and allow admission, especially through provisions for out of school children, which this move marks a significant step towards ensuring inclusive education for marginalized communities and emphasize the responsibilities of state institutions to uphold the right to education for all children, regardless of nationality or legal status. Additionally, schools have been guided to use special training centers to help such students integrate academically, recognizing the challenges they might face in adapting the mainstream classroom. Delhi airports get full body scanners trials set to begin in May. This is a part of security enhancement initiatives. So these scanners would be installed at Terminal 1 and 2 at Terminal 3, which would undergo a 3 to 4 month trial period, after which a committee led by the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security will evaluate their performances before finalizing standard procedures for broader use. So they would use millimeter wave technology, which is 70 to 80 hertz, which is safe for all passengers, including pregnant women and those with medical implants, as they do not emit harmful radiations like X-rays. These technologies enable quick, non-intrusive detection of both metallic and non-metallic threats, including explosives, which could, with each scan, taking just about 3 seconds. So this upgrade aligns Delhi Airport with global security standards seen in countries like US, Canada, Australia, which would boost both passenger safety and the efficiency of security checks on the airports. So President Draupadi Murmu will visit Portugal and Slovakia from April 7 to 10, which would mark the first presidential visit to these countries in nearly 3 decades. So this visit would basically highlights the 50 years of diplomatic ties between India and Portugal, with discussions likely to include trade, migration, education, and cultural exchange. So in Slovakia, the president would engage in high-level meetings with president and prime minister, which is only the second in a presidential visit to Slovakia since diplomatic relations were established. Now, this trip underscores growing economic and political cooperation, including Indian investment in Slovakia, auto engineering and IT sectors, as well as Slovak businesses leading to entering the Indian market. And this visit reflects India's broader engagement strategy with Europe amid ongoing talks for a free trade agreement with the European Union. Union Minister of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying, SP Singh Baghel, rarely miss an opportunity to connect with folk artists. So this participation basically highlights how the center is emphasizing and promoting India's diverse cultural fabrics and engaging with indigenous communities through such grassroots levels or events. Star rating system for state environment bodies given up. So the Union Environment Ministry has withdrawn its star rating system for the state environment impact assessment authorities, which was introduced in January 2022 to encourage faster environmental clearances. Now, the ministry told the National Green Tribunal that the policy was no longer in use and a new framework may be developed later. Now, this system, which rated states on efficiency and timeline for granting environmental clearances, faced criticism for potentially diluting environmental scrutiny under the 2006 EIA notification. So the NGT declared the challenges infectious and closed the case. Coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. Now, I think this quote basically highlights the stages of building effective teamwork or collaboration and underlines the important steps of how we start with coming together and working together or building something which is a progress, we finally start working together, which is successful. A new energy. So the US Department of Energy approved the Holtec International's application to design and build small modular reactors in India, which allows unclassified SMR technology to be transferred to L&T, Tata Consulting Engineers, and Holtec Asia. So it basically paves the way for India to join the global supply chain for small nuclear reactors, an area where China is also active. So SMRs is seen as future-ready solution due to their compact size, efficiency, and faster construction timelines. Now, nuclear energy, it matters to India since it offers a clean, reliable base load power option, crucial for reducing dependence on coal and balancing this intermittent nature of renewable like solar and wind. In short, these steps they strengthen India's nuclear capabilities and promote self-reliance in clean energy technology, and it helps it take a strategic position in global SMR supply chain. This was the last article for today. Thank you, everyone.